Hey everyone, Tom Butwin here for Premier Guitar Magazine, and today we are talking about syncopation, specifically how you can incorporate syncopation into your strumming patterns on the guitar. Now, to do this, we have to back up and talk about what syncopation actually is. So, I went to the dictionary and I got the actual definition, and I'm going to read it to you right now. Syncopation, a shifting of the normal accent, usually by stressing the normally unaccented beats. What does that really mean? Well, in music, there are places that we expect beats and accents to be, and just to put it simply, syncopation means kind of an element of surprise, putting an accent or a stress in a place that you normally would not expect it to be. More often than not, in fact, almost always, some element of syncopation is in the music that you like to listen to and play because it's what makes it interesting. It's kind of the spice of life when it comes to rhythms. So for this video, we're going to break it up into two sections. The first section is going to be some very basic strumming patterns that demonstrate no syncopation versus some syncopation. And the second part is going to be three opportunities that you have in your playing to incorporate syncopation if you're not doing it already. So let's get started with something very, very simple, just quarter note strumming. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Playing each beat very evenly, and there's really no accent happening on any one of those beats. Now let's do the same thing with eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, pretty straightforward. We're playing more because we're doing eighth notes instead of quarter notes, but still nothing really being accented. Now let's do 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, and again, I'm trying to play this as evenly as possible. On the guitar, naturally, we do accent things with a downstroke or an upstroke, but I'm trying to play as evenly as possible. I'm probably not doing that great of a job of it because a lot of these accents are ingrained in us, and one of the things that's ingrained in Western music is accenting the 2 and the 4 if you're in 4/4 time. And what I mean by that is this. Let's go back to the eighth note strumming. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Imagine where the snare drum might be if you're playing a song. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So those are expected. Those are where you would normally find an accent or an emphasis on beats 2 and 4. That's sort of the backbone, the backbeat to so much music. So let's go back to our definition of syncopation, in which it tells us that if you move the expected accents around, now you're syncopating a rhythm. So if I'm expecting the accent of my strumming to be on 2 and 4, what if we put it somewhere else? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3. So I'm putting it on the and of 3. Unexpected? Sure, it's unexpected, but it probably doesn't sound that weird to you. You've probably heard a song that does that. And again, that's where syncopation is just ingrained in so much of what we do. It's not really unexpected. It can be, absolutely, catch you off surprise, make you think you're in an odd meter, different time signature when you're really just in 4/4. But for the most part, it's just moving around those accents to other places that aren't so straight ahead and so stereotypical when it comes to a strumming pattern. So now let's talk about those three ways that you can incorporate this deliberately into your strumming technique. The first, and one of the most common ways that guitar players, and particularly rhythm acoustic guitar players, can do this is by anticipating chord changes. Now, if I have a chord progression where I stay on, let's just say, I stay on one chord for 4 beats and then I change to another chord for 4 beats like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'm changing chords on each bar line. So when it hits the 1 of the next measure or the next 4 count, I'm changing to the D chord in this case from a G chord. Now what if I anticipated that and put the chord change instead of on 1, but we put it on the and of 4? Something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 Gives it a very different feel. It's close because you do have that split second that you're changing chords. So it really works well for the acoustic guitar. Now, if you did this on a piano, changing on the and of 4 is going to sound different than it does here. It actually lends itself very much to strumming an acoustic guitar because of the up and down nature of the strumming pattern, but you get the idea. This is a very common way that you can incorporate syncopation into your strumming pattern. So if you're writing a song and you're saying, I don't know, it's just not really kind of interesting to me, try anticipating a chord change, and maybe that can spice things up a little bit. So the second way to incorporate this is somewhat related to the first way, and that's taking the anticipation of a chord change, like we talked about, and actually moving it into the middle of the measure. This can be kind of interesting. So instead of changing a chord just on one of the quarter notes, maybe we'll change it on the and of one of the quarter notes. So if I didn't do this, it would sound like this. It would sound 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, as opposed to this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You can see the difference. Maybe one works for one song, maybe one works for another song, but certainly there are ways that you can use this to make things more interesting if you're writing a song or writing a part, or if you're just trying to recreate a song that you already know. Recognizing a pattern like that and understanding what you're hearing as syncopation is definitely helpful. So the third and final way to incorporate this is actually not playing on certain beats. You can also add elements of surprise or syncopation by not playing notes. And the coolest way to do this is by, I think, not playing on the 1. You always expect, and you just kind of naturally always play something on the downbeat of a measure. But what if you didn't? What if you played something on the and? That's your entrance into maybe a solo, or if you're writing a chord progression, maybe try starting on the and of 1 as opposed to on the downbeat. It can be really interesting. So again, if you're going to start a song, the drummer counts off 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what you would expect. But what if you did something like this? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So try deleting things as opposed to always playing and adding accents. You can really shape what you're playing by not playing sometimes. And the simplest way, like I said, to start out by doing this is just don't start on the 1. Start somewhere else. It could be on beat 2. It could be on the and of 1 like we demonstrated, or you could be adding rests at certain points throughout the measure. It all creates the element of surprise. They're all elements of syncopation, and it's what really keeps music interesting and your strumming pattern specifically interesting. So the final thing I'd like to point out is just kind of a bonus when it comes to strumming a guitar. It's something that's inherently cool about the instrument that you can't really do on a piano or a wind instrument or anything else really. But if you notice in the intro example to this video, I'm strumming 16th notes with this hand, and I'm doing that pretty consistently like this. Okay? And what you can do to practice syncopation or write something that's syncopated is use your left hand and pick a chord. I was doing some 2-note chords at the beginning of the video, but you could take a bar chord. Those work really well. But something that you can go from muted to actually fretting and playing notes by just squeezing down on the fretboard like this. So you can see this hand is just continuing on, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. You don't have to use that particular strumming pattern, but it works well. And you can throw in some really cool syncopated rhythms by just squeezing down in your left hand at unexpected, unanticipated places throughout the measure of music that you're playing, and you get a really cool syncopated strumming pattern. So and again, all of that is coming out of my left hand, just squeezing down at different points. All the while, my right hand is just, Once again, my name is Tom Butwin. If you want to know more about what it is that I do, just search my name on the internet. I do have my own YouTube channel. I would love to hang out with you there. And until next time, make sure you explore all of the awesome content that Premier Guitar offers here on their channel, and I will see you in the next one.